So this is me coming to you from the future, or really the end of this video. After I completed this project, I was kind of frustrated, and I pretty much thought that pulling the secondary and the jack shaft is the only way to go, and not try to replace the rollers with the clutch in place. I'm having second thoughts on that. This may be the faster way to go. I'm not quite sure. I will say that if you need to get inside your engine compartment to do any other work like replacing your spark plugs, especially on the 850, then definitely pull the jack shaft in the secondary. It'll make your life a lot easier. Today we're going to be changing the clutch rollers on this 2021 TNT 850 E-Tech. The clutch rollers on this sled are not broken. The sled only has about 411 miles on it, but we're going to go ahead and change them as a preventative measure. And what I wanted to do was attempt to change the clutch rollers without pulling the secondary clutch right here and the jack shaft. It seems like a lot of extra work to do that. On the other side, you have to pop the cover off or pop the cap off the chain case and remove a nut, and then there's a tool you have to use to drive the jack shaft through the chain case right here. But to get at it, to get a straight shot, you have to remove the muffler, which is also difficult to do because the springs are way inside the hood area, and I don't know how you would get the muffler springs back on without removing the hood. I think you could take them off, but I don't think you could get them back on through here without removing the hood. So this is the first time I've ever done this. You're going to watch me try to complete it, and I will let you know at the end whether I think you should remove the secondary and the jack shaft as a whole, or try replacing the rollers with the clutch intact. So before we get started, I wanted to show you the tools that you're going to need to do this job with the clutch in place. I have some orange Loctite here, a 3/32 punch. That's a long nose punch. You're going to need that for the rollers. The other thing you're going to need is a T27 bit. I have it attached to a 3/8 ratchet here. You're going to need some leverage. So I used a 3/8 ratchet for the T27. I have a magnet there, and this wrench is a double end ratcheting wrench with a T40 bit in one end, and the T40 is going to be used to remove the cap head screws on the back of the clutch. The wrench is really long. I also used large needle nose pliers and a hammer. Also bought these high torque clutch rollers. They come with 2 rollers, washers, and new pins. And the other thing I went ahead and did was I bought hex head screws to put back in the clutch. So if I have to take the back off the clutch again, I'll be using the hex head screws with washers. And on the far right, you see the clutch tool to open up the secondary in order to take the belt off of the clutch to get at it. So don't skip on the tools. This wrench here is crucial. You can get it on Amazon for $13. It's a double-ended ratchet wrench, Duratech, and it comes with this little T40 bit. I got these from Grip and Rip, and so you could save yourself some money, but I just don't know if it's worth it because I ordered the rollers from Grip and Rip anyway, so I just bought the wrench as well. But you're going to be able to use this wrench for not only removing the cap head screws, and it's a long handle wrench. You're going to need that because everything's Loctited. But you can also use the wrench to replace the cap head screws with these hex head screws to put back in the back of the clutch so that you don't have to use the T40 bit anymore. But this wrench is pretty much a necessity, whether you get it from Grip and Rip or Amazon. You can see the long handle. It's almost as long as a hammer. So if you're still with me, I'm going to show you how to get started here. And I speeded this up in 2x. You need to find your clutch tool and thread it into the collar here. And what that allows you to do is open up the secondary and remove the belt. And it does that by pushing the helix in. So you can see the helix coming back out as I remove the clutch tool. It's a good idea to use anti-seize on this because these are mainly aluminum components and they could strip easily. The next thing we'll do is get this collar off of here, and these are left-handed threads, so this isn't on very tight, but I am using a wrench to take it off. You need to turn it clockwise to get it off. And behind this collar, there's just a thin shim. I think it's a shim. It's not really a washer. And this can be hard to get off, so there's a bolt you have to take off. You can't just loosen it. I had to actually remove the bolt. So I remove the bolt and then just use a screwdriver to open up the collar just enough to get it popped off. And you can remove this thin shim here. Then the next thing you'll need, and I didn't show you this in the clutch tools, but you'll need it, is a tool that basically expands on the inside of the jack shaft. And I got this tool from Grip and Rip, and I have 3 QRS clutches, so I'll use this tool a lot, or you can just borrow it from somebody. You tighten up the bolt, it gets stuck in the shaft there, and then you use this piece of pipe and a nut to push the helix in. And the reason you need to push the helix in is because you need to get the bolts out of the back, so you have to compress the spring that's in the helix. And this spring isn't very strong. I think if you had 2 people, you could probably do it by hand. The spring's not very strong, but this tool does make it a lot easier. And I'm sure if you have the tool, all your friends are going to want to borrow it. So, the tools are a worthwhile investment, especially since you can use them for multiple years of sleds. So now comes the fun part, and it's removing the 4 T40 bolts out of the back of the secondary clutch, and that's where the ratcheting wrench that I bought from Grip and Rip comes in. You also have to push the ratchet down because you're looking at this from the mirror image, so you have to remember. See, I'm trying to tighten it right there because I don't have it backwards in my mind. So you actually have to push the ratchet down to get the screws out. And I've seen people on the internet removing these, and they want to apply heat because these are Loctited in, but honestly, I did not find these to be that hard to remove. The hardest thing is just keeping the bit in the top of the screw there. So this is a long handle ratchet, and I did not find the Loctite to be problematic at all. This is the part that takes some time to get used to, is putting your hand in there and holding the bit in place while you undo the bolts. And this is the part right here that you save some time on with the leaving the clutch and the jack shaft in the sled. But as I said before, now that I've done it, I probably will do it with leaving the clutch and the jack shaft in the sled again, unless I have to replace the plugs or something like that. If I do that, I'm taking the whole thing out. This was just, it's a less complicated way, but I'm not sure that it saves a whole lot of time. One other thing that's kind of important as I'm taking these bolts out here is that the helix spring compression tool just needs to take the tension off the helix. If you push the helix in too far and it spreads the clutch sheaves apart, then you've gone too far. You just want to take the tension off. You don't want to actually push the clutch sheaves apart, and the reason is because if you push the clutch sheaves apart, then you won't have enough room to get the wrench in and remove all the bolts. The wrench will get stuck against the bearing plate, so you need to leave yourself enough room. And once you get the first one out, you'll get the hang of it. You take it probably 90% of the way out with the ratcheting wrench, and then the rest of the way you can remove it by hand. So that's just one more tip for you. So now we got all 4 bolts out of the back of the secondary, and then we can remove the tool from the clutch here, which will let the helix come all the way out. And like I said before, this isn't under an incredible amount of tension. You just need to undo it, and you'll be able to pull the helix out. And here's one more important thing that I forgot to mention. Before you take this apart, take a Sharpie or take a screw or something and make a scratch or a mark so that you can get all this stuff lined back up correctly. It's really important that you put this back together in the same way that you took it apart, so don't forget to do that. I didn't show that here, but I took a screw and I made some scratches on the helix and the two clutch sheaves. So this will just pull out right here. You can see the helix with the ramps and the secondary spring. And this is just good knowledge for you to have taking this apart. Just in case you ever get a broken spring or you have an issue with your clutch, you'll know how to take it apart because you've already taken it apart to do the rollers. So now we're getting into it here. This is with the helix removed, and you can see the clutch rollers here. And mine are not broken, and they spin pretty well. But I just want to replace them as a preventative measure because if the clutch rollers break, you're going to have a problem. So in order to remove the clutch rollers, you have to take this bolt out here, and it is pinned in with roll pins and also Loctite. And so I couldn't figure out where the heck the roll pins were, and they're behind this white washer right there. You can see that. So you have to pull this white washer off. That's what the spring sits on. So once you pull this white washer out of there, it's really a bushing more than a washer. You can see the roll pins right back there behind it. And this is what you need the 3/32 punch for. You have to push these roll pins back out the other side and they'll fall out. So what I'm about to show you here is punching out the roll pins. And you definitely want to have a 3/32 punch. Like I said before, don't use a drill bit or something, because if you snap that drill bit off in there, it's going to be really impossible to get out. So a lot of guys were saying that they had a problem with getting these roll pins out. I didn't have much of a problem, but I could see if they were really rusted in there, you could have a problem. This is only a 21 with like 400 miles on it, so I didn't have much of a problem getting these out. And then once the pin goes through, it just basically falls out the back. It falls down into the clutch area. And you can just use the little magnet or just reach around in there with your hand and get that pin out of there. You can reuse them. I reused mine. I didn't use the new pins that came with the clutch kit. So once you have the pins out, you can use the T27 bit to undo these screws right here, and they're Loctited in, so I thought that they were going to be kind of a monster to get out, but they really weren't bad at all. And you can just pull out the rollers with your fingers there, and I reused these screws. There was nothing wrong with them, so I ended up reusing them. So the next thing we're going to do is install the new rollers, and these high torque rollers have a specific instruction of installing the logo out against the washer. If you buy this brand of rollers, you'll see. And then I reinserted the pin, the screw, but one thing you have to do before you put the screw back in is you have to make a mark on the screw head so that you know where the roll pin goes so that you can get it lined up. If you don't do that, you'll just be kind of guessing. So once the screw is tight, it kind of lines itself up, but it's easier if you just take your 3/32 punch and just make a scratch on the head of the screw. And then I just used a big nail set to punch the roll pins back in. One forum that I was reading on the internet, one of the dealers said they don't even put the pins back in. They just use Loctite. But I did put the pins back in. This was kind of challenging to get them lined up. You can use your 3/32 punch before you put the pin in and just kind of make sure that it's all the way set that it goes all the way through before you put the roll pins in. So what you can see here is me using the ratcheting wrench to put the hex head screws back in the back side of the clutch. And one thing I'd recommend here is getting all 4 of them, or at least a few of them, started before you tighten down one of them. You need to get them all. There's not much play in the helix, but you need to get them all kind of started before you Loctite them and tighten them down. So I got them all, put a dab of Loctite on them and got them all started. And I didn't torque these down because I couldn't get a torque wrench in there, but I just torqued them down to tight enough. And so then remove the clutch tool. You don't forget to put on the collar first. And, well, you don't need to put on the collar first because the helix is bolted in. And you can put on the shim. Don't forget the shim. And then you can put the collar back on. And it goes left because of the left-handed threads. And then you can put the belt back on. And it is recommended that you let the Loctite, let orange Loctite set up for at least 24 hours before you put the sled back in operation. So I'll be longer than that since there's not a lot of snow. And that's pretty much it. So would I do it this way again? Yeah, I think I would. Once I got done with this, I thought there's no way I'm doing this again. I'll just pull the jack shaft and do everything on the bench. I don't know what to recommend. I think that in a lot of cases that makes sense, especially if you're going to change your spark plugs. But in this case, it is possible to do it with the clutch and the sled. I hope you found this video helpful. If you prefer one way or the other, leave a comment below. If you think this way was quicker, let me know. If you think just removing the jack shaft is the better way to go, let me know. And thank you for watching.